and prosperity.
China's government disagrees, but continuing on his middle path, the Dalai Lama promotes only peaceful change and compassion. His message draws the devoted to Dharamsala from around the world. This year, Tibetan Buddhists are offering long life celebrations to honor the Dalai Lama. This one, just 2 days before his 72nd birthday, brought him from his home high above the town to the main temple. For each of the 800 people who have come to Dharamsala on this day, just being in the presence of the Dalai Lama is a prayer answered. Because the Chinese allow only limited religious practices, refugees say it is the Dalai Lama's presence in Dharamsala that offers spiritual and political hope to those who still call Tibet home. In recent years, the Dalai Lama is often traveling and far from his own home here in exile. But when he is in Dharamsala, he makes time to meet personally with every Tibetan refugee who makes it to safety. It is for them and for the millions still in Tibet that His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama says he remains committed to what he calls Tibet's freedom struggle against Chinese authoritarian rule.
I have, you see, the three commitments. Number one commitment is promotion of human value. Then second, my commitment is promotion of religious harmony. So these two, my commitments, till my death, I fully committed. Then third, my commitment is about Tibetan issue, Tibetan freedom struggle.
When we come back, the journey to freedom and how a population without a country keeps Tibet's ancient culture alive. For Tibetans in exile, the blessings that freedom brings are not taken for granted. More than 100,000 Tibetans now live as refugees around the world, 8,000 of them here in Dharamsala. They risk their lives, leave their families, and sometimes even send their children alone across the Himalayas for what they believe is a chance for true freedom. In Dharamsala's reception center for refugees, the exiles' stories are evidence of the desperation that drives them from their homes. This 11-year-old girl says her family had her smuggled into India alone. You by yourself? All alone? Ooh, boy, very brave girl, huh? She rode in cars, hidden from Chinese border guards, but many refugees come on foot. It's a journey even experienced mountain climbers would find difficult. The most popular route takes them just west of Mount Everest across 19,000-foot Himalayan passes. Menger Yudin manages the Dharamsala Refugee Center, where the crowded rooms overflow not when conditions are easy, but in the dead of winter.
Winter time we receive 100 to 200, sometimes 300 in a month. In summer we have less refugees.
Why do you have fewer refugees in the summer?
Because there is more restriction on the border area. In the winter time, most of the mountains are covered with snow, so the border patrolling police, they just hesitate to look around the mountain.
So there are fewer Chinese.
Yeah, fewer Chinese
on the border.
Yeah, border.
Most of the refugees are coming from the eastern Tibetan areas around here. Almost all of them will try to travel by road towards Everest, and then if they cross there, it's probably a 10-day or 2-week walk through the snow.
Robert Barnett, an assistant professor at Columbia University and an expert on modern Tibet, visits the region every year with Chinese permission.
Yeah, there's a lot of people trying to escape, and you meet people who come up to you and beg for help to escape. I think what the Chinese have created in Tibet is a new kind of society where you allow a lot of things to happen, like the market and money and businesses. At the same time, they chain down the things that most matter to people. They limit hugely religion. They limit what people can say. And above all, they limit people's right to make decisions. It's like imagining a person who's trying to run, but they have huge chains tied to their legs. I think Tibet is like this.
They've been in prison for 6 months, 1 month, 3 years, like that.
These men describe themselves as former political prisoners. And what were their crimes?
2 of them, they did a painting of Tibetan flag.
And that's a crime?
For this reason, they got prison.
You were in prison? You were in jail how long?
I can't a look as there was 7 months in prison.
Were you beaten? Were you tortured?
Can you don't dance? Yeah, he been beaten.
But you were arrested for painting a Tibetan flag, right?
Yes.
But you must have known that the Chinese didn't like this.
Yeah, he know that.
You know, the Chinese say that Tibet is China and that all people in Tibet are Chinese. Do you consider yourself Chinese?
He don't accept that.
This woman says she was in prison in Tibet for 27 years before escaping. So she was arrested for being part of a demonstration
Yeah.
and making protests
Yeah, protest.
against the Chinese. Now, in her 70s, she looks after the refugee children who tell their stories of life inside Tibet with pictures.
Like, the Chinese say there's a religious freedom, but still today there's no religious freedom actually, because even to keep a picture of His Holiness, like punish that when the child is crying. So this.
About how many children come alone?
Most of the refugees we receive here are school-going children, and from this group, most of them they come along with a guide from Tibet, and few of them they could come with their parents.
Those children coming from Tibet are a special concern of the Dalai Lama's. He set up the first Tibetan school in India in 1960 for 51 children orphaned and living in exile. There are now 16,000 children enrolled in Tibetan children's village schools. At the Dharamsala school, director Thupten Dorji is constantly adding beds to the dormitories and desks to the classrooms, making room for children whose parents are desperate to get them out of Tibet.
No parent wants to separate from their child if things are working fine in Tibet. So this is a clear indication that things are not well inside Tibet, as what the Chinese claim to be.
Many of these children will never see Tibet again. Their connection to their culture will be learned in a classroom.
If the Tibetan issue is to be kept alive, our hope are our children. So we have to educate them befitting a Tibetan. So this is why we are giving them an education here.
Administrators said this little girl's mother brought her to the school when she was just 5 months old. Her mother returned to Tibet to protect the rest of her family.
We have children who have lost their eyesight. We have children who have lost their fingers and toes out of frostbites. This is all undertaken just because back inside Tibet, the parents feel that there is no proper education for these children to grow up as Tibetan. So it is purely for want of education befitting a Tibetan, so that the child grows up as Tibetan. So the parents risk in sending their children.
That risk can